we mentioned a few teams. We talked about Colorado, talked about Tampa, talked about Nashville, about some of these low state tax cities. And it's kind of funny how some of the best lines in hockey, best teams, of course, play in these markets because they have that ability to sign players for cheaper and build stronger teams.
No, man, it's because they're taking pay cuts because they like their team.
So let's talk about the most selfless players in the league and why they all happen to play on the same lines. Let's talk about some of the best lines in hockey. Are we going to go top 3 here?
Yeah, let's go top 3. Maybe we'll go 3-1.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Okay, let me hear your top 3. Let me hear your third first.
Okay. This is a tough one, like, quite frankly. I think the third best line in the league currently, I have the first line in Calgary with Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Gaudreau.
Okay. Why?
I think that line they kind of have a bit of everything. Tkachuk is highly skilled, but he's also a little bit greasy. He'll get in the corners, he'll be chippy, which helps. Lindholm's a great two-way center as well. He's, I think when he came over from Carolina, I didn't expect him to really develop into a first-line center because I knew he was good. I think he started out on the wing, actually, and then transitioned to center and is now really good.
Fantastic.
Johnny Gaudreau speaks for himself. I talked about him as a low-key guy who could be in the running for the Hart. He's having a great contract year. Might be the last year this team plays together if they're not able to keep everybody, but I think they're just a real solid line, and they're also a really well-coached team, so that helps on the stat sheet in terms of how they come across analytically.
I agree. On a side note, that Lindholm deal might have been the most star-studded trade I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it
Guys,
was.
like Lindholm, you told me Adam Fox was in that deal.
Adam Fox, Hannafin was.
Hannafin, like a lot of crazy. Dougie Hamilton.
Right? Too. Holy smokes, yeah.
A lot of big names. So my top 3, who I have in third, and let me just be clear, this is like right now. This isn't like over the last 3 years, because if it was, this line would be number 1. I have Rantanen, McKinnon, Landeskog.
Mm-hmm.
Reasons they're not number 1, like they don't play together as much anymore, and intangibly, when I watch them play, like Rantanen and Landeskog are better when they don't play with Nathan McKinnon. And I know that's a hot take.
That's hot.
But Jared Bednar must agree with me, because Landeskog doesn't play on that line anymore, and they're starting to move Rantanen off. And the reason is because Nathan McKinnon, irrespective of how fantastic he is, he's a hog. Like, he is a hog. He takes 25 shots a game, and like, I understand, like, let your best player take the best opportunities. But the problem is Mikko Rantanen's like one of the best wingers in the league, and he just doesn't get the puck enough.
Yeah.
Right. So this line has seemed a little dysfunctional lately, which is why they're no longer playing together. But in terms of raw skill, like, yeah, maybe you would put them number 1 over the last 3 years.
Yeah,
right.
That's fair.
Maybe I'll go to my number 2, and then you can go to your number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2, I have the homeboys, Matthews, Marner, and Michael Bunting. So of all the lines I'm talking about, they have the highest expected goals for percentage at 65%. Their expected goals per 60 minutes is like 3.82, which is crazy.
Jeez. Like,
they'll almost score 4 goals if they played every single minute of the game.
Yeah.
Their expected goals against is second at 2.11. So this line can play two-way. Right?
Yeah.
A little bit of a side note, I want to ask you about this. There was an anonymous scout that said, talked about the Michael Bunting contract, and not only that, as to who he is as a player, and said that if Michael Bunting didn't have Austin Matthews, he'd be in the minors. What do you think about that?
That's just a jealous scout who is upset that Bunting only wanted to sign here. Because don't forget, in 23 games, he had like 10 goals with Arizona.
It was good.
And who was he playing with in Arizona? Like
nobody.
A cactus? Like, they're trash. And he's just, does he benefit from playing with arguably the best player in the world right now? Yeah, of course he does. But who wouldn't?
Yes.
I think that's kind of a load of bull. But what do you think?
I think if Michael Bunting didn't play with Austin Matthews, he'd probably be a top 6 forward. He'd probably fill up this 5th or 6th spot on the second line. Yeah. But like, that's a far cry away from being an AHL player. Exactly. I mean, would he have 57 points in 46 games? Like, no. He's also playing with like a top 5 playmaker in the league in Mitch Marner. Like, you know what? I actually think that without Bunting, Austin Matthews would be playing in the AHL.
Well, I was talking about I think it was maybe talking with my dad. I said, They paid Hyman how much? Over $5 million in Edmonton. I loved Zach Hyman when he was here.
Yep.
But you're getting Bunting for under $1 million, and this line is better, if anything.
Better.
So he's been a great replacement. People were talking about Zach Hyman, rightfully so, as being one of these great wingers to complement these players. I think Bunting deserves the same treatment, not this treatment where people are talking about him being out of the league. I think that's kind of a load of crap.
Yeah, much agreed. Like, I'm sorry, Michael Bunting is not Patrick Maroon scoring 25 goals with Connor McDavid and would be an AHL player without him. Like, Michael Bunting's a good player.
Yeah, and on another side note, when we watch them play, he's smart. He makes all these little plays.
Yep.
He's just a great guy to have on the team. The guys seem to like him too.
Yeah, he also creates his own chances, which is
Yeah.
why I think this argument is not true. Like a great specific argument is, remember that game where he played, where he went on that breakaway and made that beautiful drop pass to Mitch Marner, right? It's like plays like that. I even was at the Seattle game a couple nights ago, and he made this beautiful pass to Austin Matthews that led to a goal. Like, the guy is not a bump on a log benefiting off Austin Matthews purely.
Yeah, exactly, for sure.
Okay, let's hear your number 2.
Yeah, so I had these guys as my number 2 as well.
Okay.
And then, funnily enough, I had Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen as my number 1, just because in terms of raw skill, I just can't look past them.
I agree.
And I have a feeling that when push comes to shove in playoff time, they're going to be back together.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be a team's worst nightmare. And they're just... You spoke about how good they are. They're unbelievable. Probably like... It might be the highest skilled line. Like you said, just raw skill. They're probably the best in the league.
Oh, it is, for sure.
So that's why I have them at 1. But I'm curious now, because we already talked about that line. Who do you have at number 1?
Yeah, it looks like we're a direct symmetry of each other. I got Gaudreau, Lindholm, Kachuk.
Oh, did you really?
1. Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, the reasons why, like, they have the second highest expected goals for, like, all of them are having career years. Gaudreau has 74 points, 56 games. Lindholm 60 points with 29 goals. Like I described in the last episode, Calgary has that offensive 5-on-5 expected goals percentage, a first in the league or something like that, with not requiring special teams. What does that tell me? It's like their even strength line's doing it, and it's the first line that is taking the brunt of the load.
Yeah.
What really is impressive is that out of all these lines, their expected goals against is the smallest at 2, which means this line is great two-way. Like you mentioned it, Elias Lindholm is one of the best two-way centers in the league. And I, at first, thought Gaudreau was not a very good two-way player, but these stats tell me otherwise. And I mean, I'm going to believe the objective stats. I think they're the best line.